Hello and welcome to the introduction and overview for Unit 6. In this unit we'll talk about the plays of the English Renaissance, their progression and their development. And most of us, when we think of the English Renaissance, tend to think only of Shakespeare. And of course, Shakespeare is an incredibly important playwright in theater history, dramatic literature, and in Western literature. But he's not the only playwright. There are many playwrights during this period whose works are worth noting and investigating. So, one critic actually said that it's kind of like gazing at the sky, and Shakespeare is the sun. And because the sun is so bright, you can't see all the stars in the sky. And the rest of the playwrights in this period are kind of like the stars in the sky. There's a multitude of them, and they're fascinating, and they're rich, and they're bright in their own right, but they tend to get obscured by the sun, Shakespeare. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other playwrights during this period. Another thing that most of us tend to do is to think of this period only as the Elizabethan period, whereas it's actually more accurate to describe it as the Elizabethan Jacobean period. Because when Elizabeth dies in 1603 and James I ascends the throne, the plays, while remarkably similar in many aspects, undergo a change. There's an important transition in the drama. So we're going to also talk about that transition and how the plays of the Elizabethan era are slightly different than the plays of the Jacobean era. Elizabeth I, Elizabethan era, James I, Jacobean era. So we're going to read three important plays of the period. We're going to read an early play by Thomas Kyd called The Spanish Tragedy, a play I dearly love and want to do someday. And that play sets the stage for the entire period. It's the model of the Elizabethan revenge tragedy. And then we're going to read Hamlet by William Shakespeare. And when you read Hamlet after reading the Spanish tragedy, I hope you'll see the connection and see how many ideas that Shakespeare stole from Kyd and actually built upon and changed. And then we're going to read a late play by Webster called The Duchess of Malfi, and that is a Jacobean work. So these plays all share some common elements, theme, dramaturgy. In lots of ways, they're remarkably similar. And they also share some important influences, Seneca and the medieval drama. As a matter of fact, you could almost describe the English Renaissance plays as Seneca by way of the medieval drama. So we're going to talk about the connections between Seneca, medieval drama, and these plays of the English Renaissance, and how these plays are similar, and then also the subtle differences in dramaturgy, emphasis, and focus in these three plays of the English Renaissance, which again share many of the same characteristics, but some subtle differences as well. I hope you'll be as excited and inspired by this period as I am, and that you enjoy Unit 6 and the plays of the English drama.